ladies and gentlemen, and a holla ballers! Day 2 of the race to world first. Yes, it is the morning of day 3 here. The boys are already in. It is 7 a.m. here. They are chugging away at their heroic splits and going ridiculously quickly. Splits is always that thing that is the dreaded part for the players. We, as casters, it's not like look forward to it, but it's the bit where we can have the most fun and silliness, and we put on as much stuff as we can to make sure that, like, pretty much every hour there's something happening that's worth watching and worth interesting and some things like that. So it's a fun time, but they're going really, really quickly. Yesterday, at least on the Echo side, they did like 40 splits. They were doing 4 normal modes at a time. Every race seems to up it. It went to like 2 at a time. Then it was 3 at a time. Now it's 4 at a time. But heroic, this is the exciting part of the race for me. At least right now, I'm feeling very excited. Heroic is nowhere near as easy as it was in the Sarkareth raid. Like, it was bizarre in the Sarkareth raid. It's like, dude, these fights are like super easy. We're able to bring like 25 helpers along, and it's fine. It's not a problem. We're killing the bosses in really efficiently and getting uber amounts of gear, which then led to the overgearing as well as the crest system and blah, 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 which then led to a more disappointing mythic raid. Not so much this time. Daddy Smolder is the daddy, and this really bodes well for what we might see in Mythic, because we're really on the fence here, certainly even with the players and the casters. Like, how is Mythic going to be tuned? We just don't know yet. The Mythic is there, it's waiting to be done, but we've not gone in there and done anything with it yet, and there's like 1 boss dead, at least last I checked, in Mythic, but we don't know how the later bosses are looking, for sure, and the final 3 are the ones that are kind of going to dictate this race, as far as we can tell. The other bosses have potential to be interesting, and by interesting I mean the guys aren't just going to go in and one-shot it, which is like, okay, and that boss is dead now. Moving on. Thank you for the loot. That's not as fun, but we don't want them to be obnoxiously hard either, so it's that balancing act that Blizzard has to strike, which is tough, but they're aiming, they're targeting, you know. I talked to some of the devs at BlizzCon about it, and they're like, yeah, we kind of want this to be good. We're going to do our best, you know, we're going to make it, try and get it as good as we possibly can, so whatever's going to come out of it is interesting. But considering how tough Smolder already is, and T-Swift, Tandril Sage Swift, and of course Farak, which has died a few times now on Heroic, which is about what we expect with the guilds that are focused on doing that, and obviously the previous Mythic raiding guilds that aren't doing a ton of splits and stuff like that, is we do expect it to be dead by now, but not an abundance of deaths. That's good. We saw a lot of deaths with Sarkareth, so it's lining up to be a proper tier. That's what I'm excited about so far. But not that yesterday went flawlessly. The story of yesterday, at least from here, was not only me eating... Look, I don't intend to come to these races and have a face full of beans. It's not on my to-do list, right? It's not on my to-do list. But when we can get, like, nearly $2,500 raised in about 10 minutes for charity, I'll eat some beans, right? I'll eat the beans, and I ate half a tub of I didn't finish them, I did spit them out afterwards, but half a ton of mystery beans, which are either things like dishwater, boogers, vomits, old socks, or they're pineapple birthday cake and nice things. It's supposed to be a game of 50-50, but we really pushed the boundaries. We unleashed the sussy on the crowd, which was awesome to see the chat just explode in happiness. Like, having that result and having that high is like, yeah, sure, okay, we'll go down this road and have a nice big full stop to this situation. But the story was Team Hope versus Team Despair. Oh, God. So if you missed this, if you were watching the Liquid stream, or it was a little too late for you, it was late in the night when this was happening. The guys were raiding from 3 a.m. And they finished it. We left here at 10 p.m. I started casting at 5 a.m. and then I had my stream, and then I was casting till the death. So it was an extremely long day yesterday. But that's the nature of the launch of the race. Team Hope and Team Despair. So they knew Heroic was going to be tough because they had seen that. We talked about this yesterday. They had seen that Liquid was wiping on Smolder on Heroic. So they're like, okay, Heroic's a little tougher this time. So we'll do 2 splits simultaneously. So they split the raid in half and had them doing that. And Smolder was the problem. Once they hit Smolder, okay, wipes started happening. They did eventually. So Team Hope and Team Despair, which at the time were just called Team A and B, did overcome both those odds, and they got to Tandril Sage Swift, and they managed to kill it. And it took a while, but they got there, and it was good. And they were like, okay, we can do this with our setup, with our groups. So then That was 2 splits done. Then both groups started the next split. One group finished theirs. The other group did not. Hence, the group that finished, which was led by Roger Brown, Team Hope, and the other group led by Scripe, Team Despair. And we call them Team Despair because not only did it take the rest of the evening for them to finish Smolder and Tandril Sage Swift, the other team, Team Hope, not only cleared their second run, then went for dinner, then came back, started their next and third split, and finished that just about 15 minutes after Team Despair finished their second run. They did an entire extra run, and the difference was about 20 minutes, if that, in them completing it. And at some points, they were side by side on the same boss, and it turned into a race. They almost completely lapped the other team. That can happen. You might be, I'm sure many people watching when these scenarios come up are like, why? Is this sufficient for time? Probably not, right? You really want that extra gear, but you can bring in, and this is what Echo ended up doing, was bring in more of the Echo roster on different characters in order to bolster the raid group. You know, you are helpers. Helpers, you have to be careful what you say here, because in no way are you disrespecting the people who are giving up their time and loot to help Echo out at all. But they are taking whoever they can, and a lot of them haven't done hours of PTR testing, right? This is where experience is everything when it comes to raid bosses and raiding undergeared, which is what they are. Like, the gear jump in this raid tier is really high. Echo are used to raiding undergeared. That's how they do most of the mythic races that they've done for the last several years. So for them, it's just the way it is. Most players, they're appropriately geared when they hit this content, right? Things don't hit as hard. They do more damage. They skip more phases. That's very normal. And they don't have the wealth of experience and pulls. Like, by this point, not only is Echo already killed these bosses on Heroic already, like at least once in the previous tier, but they've also done like 10 or something split runs of normal during the day. They've seen this boss a hell of a lot. Most people have never even pulled the boss, right? They might have cleared Mythic previous raids here, but they've like never even seen this boss, and they're not sure what to do. And that's totally normal. So ultimately, they were on Smolder for like 2.5 hours. I mean, maybe Chris can check this. It's like 2.5 or 3 hours, something like that. They were stuck on Smolder and it was like, what are we going to do? So they had to swap some players in. But that fight is really hard, right? On top of that, that fight is really tough. That's going to be, for a heroic level guild, that's going to be like a big wall to overcome, is Smolder. Like a really big wall, especially if you're trying to do it with 30 people, which really shreds the room into absolute pieces. So it wasn't surprising. I actually expected both groups to, rather than Team Despair being the, although we did mock them obviously on stream, especially Kush, who ended up playing basically horizontal. The point was, this is really tough. And the fact that they were getting through it and they were killing Tandril Sage Swift, T-Swift, they were doing that was really impressive from both sides. Liquid are doing it and Echo are doing it, and it's also part of the game. But afterwards, oh man, see, this is the insight I can give you. Afterwards, when we finished the cast, so when that last group finished, when Team Hope did finish, they finished like 20 minutes later. The guys were like, we're done, we're going to bed, we've been playing since 3 a.m. It's 10 p.m. now, and we want to raid again at 7 a.m. And they have been, like I said, I'm here now, and they have been doing that. Is we just are going to bed. As soon as I signed out of the cast, I was like, good night, we'll see you tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. Came out, and the guys were in the kitchen. Mirez and Roger were just hard trolling. Like, just saying, you know, just saying, we got, like, you know, we did a whole nother run. I'm not saying more than that, you know. Scripe's like, oh my god, I want to die. I've been casting Smolder off for so long. Kush was just a zombie walking around. I saw him at one point just seemingly get lost in the open floor. I'm sure you've seen the player room. It's got a big open floor in front of it. Just like walking around like, I don't know where I am. And I want to go to bed. I want to get it done. And they were exhausted. They were wiped out. But they did immediately jump in cars and head back to the hotel to get some sleep. And hopefully they're fresh. I haven't actually spoken to the players this morning. They were raiding when I got here. I got here at like, I don't know, 7:30. And the guys were already like full raiding. Splits were already going. Jesse and Jordan are currently on the couch doing their things. But I've got a massively busy day today. So I'm going to be streaming. We're doing Final Fantasy 3 on the stream. And then I'm casting from 3 p.m. till like 7 p.m. And then at 7:30 p.m., I'm going to be on a podcast with Jesse Cox, Garrett and Kyle from Grinding Gear, and OK Mage, aka Jordan. We're going to be doing a podcast from here talking about all the World of Warcraft stuff from BlizzCon. So I've got a massive, massive day. I'm not going to be, like I said, I got here at 20 past 7. I'm going to be back at the hotel to probably 11 p.m., something like that tonight, and on camera for most of it. So lots of content coming, but the good news is, the guys feel, or we feel, they're probably going to be done with splits either end of day today or early-ish tomorrow, which means Mythic is going to be sooner than we thought. We expect like 3 or 4 days, but it's probably going to be sooner. So stay tuned for that, and I'll let you know how it goes tomorrow. Bye, guys.